President Trump is reportedly questioning Joe Biden's mental fitness, suggesting the former vice president would fail a simple cognitive test taken by the president back in 2018. The Washington Post reporting, quote, Trump said he thought presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden would never be able to pass it and suggested challenging him to take the test. The Biden campaign punching back, saying, quote, for someone so obsessed with appearing strong, Donald Trump shows us every day just how weak he is. Donald Trump doesn't care about the health or economic prosperity of the American people. The Power Panel is back. Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall and Fox News contributor and political analyst Gianno Caldwell. Leslie, let me start with you. That response doesn't seem to be related to the insult, showing how strong he is, and he doesn't care about the prosperity of the American. All he ever talks about is the prosperity of the American people. I mean, I don't know. That was not a clever response on Biden's campaign's part. What are your thoughts?
Well, then again, should the former vice president, and if I were advising him, I wouldn't say to necessarily fight fire with fire, because you don't want to get down into the mud necessarily with your opponent. Sometimes taking the high road is the better option. Look, Donald Trump is the first president to have taken this Montreal Cognitive Assessment test. And quite frankly, I think every president going forward should. But Joe Biden isn't president. He's running for president. That's a big difference. And I would also advise him not to take this, Melissa, because even if he got a 29.5 when Trump got 30 out of 30, that would certainly be giving ammunition to his opponent, to the Trump campaign.
Yeah. Gianno, how do you think that the Biden campaign should pursue, this election in general? I mean, this idea that they shouldn't fight fire with fire. It seems like anytime, Trump wants a fight. So if you kind of fight him on that level, in the past, it hasn't worked out well for the opponent. At the same time, you always hear Democrats say what they love about Joe Biden is the fact that, he's feisty and he's going to give it right back. So what advice would you give them?
Well, first and foremost, clever, as you mentioned earlier, isn't his forte. And honestly speaking, people have been questioning his cognitive ability since 2008 when he was Barack Obama's running mate. If you even recall, when he was the vice president, they had to hide him away for a while because he kept making gaffes. Other things that Joe Biden has said as of recent, Joe Biden is going to be Joe Biden. He said that he was running for the Senate when he should have said running for the president. Poor kids are just as talented as white kids. These are things that have become problematic for the Biden campaign. And if anyone were to be advising them on what to do, it would be kind of what he's been doing, just hide in your basement, because obviously the poll numbers are doing OK, because once he goes head to head with Donald Trump, it's going to be a very big problem for him because he won't be able to fight fire with fire.
Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton saying she is laser focused on helping Joe Biden beat President Trump in November. Here she is talking to comedian Amy Schumer for Variety.
I didn't think I was going to lose. They didn't think I was going to lose, but I felt a sense of, real responsibility. Like, how did this happen? I'm spending most of my time trying to do everything I can to retire him and to, send him back to the golf course full time.
Leslie, do you want Hillary Clinton's help at this point?
Absolutely. She's a powerful fundraiser. She is a powerful woman as a former Secretary of State, First Lady, Senator, and first female Democratic nominee for the presidency. And quite frankly, when, she feels responsible, she is somewhat responsible. She didn't listen to her husband when he said, don't forget those disenfranchised white blue-collar workers. She should have gone to Wisconsin. But rather than going back, let's go forward. Look, Melissa, if you and I were in a race and you beat me, I want you to lose next time around, and I am going to help your opponent. Sorry, I love you, but I would. And quite frankly, because she's a Democrat and strong at fundraising and has had a relationship with Joe Biden for many years, this isn't surprising, and quite honestly, it would be expected for her to do that. She also has a great relationship with Barack Obama, who's just recently helped Joe Biden raise over $1 million in a day, $11 million, in a day.
Gianno, I was surprised to hear her say she feels responsible for the loss and for what's going on, because I feel like she's blamed everybody else for losing the election except for herself. So maybe that's a step forward.
Well, you got to give her credit that finally she's realizing that her saying that Trump supporters are a basket of deplorables, hot sauce in her bag, even going back into the 90s where she said African American men were super predators. Maybe now she's finally taking responsibility for her faults. Truth be told, she's been hooked on 2016 like 2016 is still here. And it's problematic that she's not tried to move the conversation forward or be an active participant in her party, in the Democratic Party, in a positive way. Democrats, I think, still to a degree, don't really want to hang around with her because she still has this toxicity around her, which makes it problematic for some voters. Not all. Leslie mentioned some great points. Yeah, she's good with fundraising, but there's other key issues that she has problems with that voters may not like her on.
Twitter again flagging one of President Trump's tweets, this time for what it says was a threat against an identifiable group. The social media giant calling it abusive behavior. This after the president tweeted that if protesters in D.C. formed an autonomous zone like they tried to do on Monday night right outside the White House, they will be met with serious force. Twitter users, including Trump supporters, won't be able to retweet the tweet due to the measure. The White House's Kellyanne Conway firing back.
Twitter seems to be very selective as to who, what, where, when, and why, and how they flag certain tweets. I think the broader issue is what's important here. There's a huge difference to the president and the rest of us between peace and protesting and violence and vandalism.
So we are back with our power panel, Leslie Marshall and Gianno Caldwell. Leslie, I'm going to start with you because I always look at this through the business perspective, and I feel like this is such a blatant attempt for Twitter to try and protect its business. They saw what happened to Facebook. Once Facebook, became entwined in the idea that they helped get President Trump elected, whether they meant to or not, they became persona non grata. I mean, you used to hear about Sheryl Sandberg's campaign to potentially become a senator. Maybe she had presidential hopes at one time. She started the Lean In campaign. I haven't heard her name or seen her name in print in so long. I think Twitter doesn't want to go down this same road that Facebook did after the last election, so they're trying to get out in front of it. What do you think of my analysis?
Actually, a lot of people might be surprised that I agree with you. Here's my problem with this. Whether it's Twitter or Facebook, of course, some people would say, well, who really cares what they think? And whether it is the president or anyone else, have some rules, write them down, stick to them, and enforce them across the board. Obviously, anybody who is threatening violence toward another group, using profanity, these are people I block from my own page. I have rules, and I'm not Twitter or Facebook by any means. But we're seeing a double standards, quite frankly, for both Twitter and Facebook. Facebook has kept things up about Nancy Pelosi or Joe Biden that are completely false, edited comments and footage. Twitter has done that as well, and they've done it on both the left and the right. So quite frankly, if you're going to go after the president for this, and because the president is not above the law and he's equal to us, you have to do this for everyone. So I know people might be surprised by my answer, but, come up with the rules, stick to them, and enforce them across the board, whether somebody's a president, somebody's a Democrat or Republican, regardless. And and it also, Melissa, this tweet is still up. Even though people can't retweet it, they can view it. And what Twitter has done, in a sense, is drawn more attention to it.
Well, that's an interesting point. And Gianno, who agrees with Leslie, is also the Washington Examiner senior columnist weighing in yesterday, saying that it is certainly not true. I don't know if we have this for the full screen. It is certainly not true that Twitter cracks down on all tweets that include a threat of harm against an identifiable group. People threaten harm against groups all the time on Twitter. Its real policy is that it doesn't want to get harassed, as Facebook has, by censorious liberals. Gianno, what do you think about that? I mean, like Leslie, a lot of people scream at me on Twitter as well. I set my tuner so that I can't see profanity, and then I never end up seeing all these things. But people say horrible things on Twitter all the time. No one does anything about it.
Well, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I agree with Leslie as well. Oh my gosh. When we're talking about, do
you want to say that one more time, Gianna?
Right. One time only, Leslie. Don't get too comfortable. But seriously, though, when we're thinking about these issues, I do see that liberals have been censored, but it's more than liberals. There's usually conservatives that are on that end, especially those with very big voices. That's why I think it's so important to follow this measure that in Section 230 that AG Barr has been talking about, to the internet protections for these social media giants. Because as you see, when you look at these companies in Silicon Valley, most of them are ran by liberal leadership. A lot of the people that work there are liberal. And you can see where there's a literal targeting of conservative voices. And this is something that must end. The rules must be spread across the board and equally applied. And so I agree with that point.
All right. Thanks to both of you.